Master Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World. So, let us talk of General Mehmed-Bey, or Sparbed Mehmed-Bey, to use the vernacular of Araby. Although perhaps he is better known to those in Estalia as the Black Lizard, for his cold-blooded execution of his duties. And then, to us war historians, the moniker the Butcher has also been applied to him after the infamous Battle of 9 Jackals during the latter parts of the Crusade. And more on that in due course, though. But back to the tale at hand. It was Mehmed-Bey who was to ostensibly lead the invasion of the Sorcerer's Islands. Although it was, of course, Jaffar who was really holding the reins.
Och, but who was he really then? I heard the name during my time in Estalia, but never any real details. Was he another scoundrel from the desert, like the fakirs of Jaffar's sorcerer's cabal?
Ah, no, he had a far more cultured upbringing. Mehmed-Bey was one of the cavalry masters of the city of Lashik's elite Sipahis cavalry.
Oh, yeah. So, what are they exactly?
Well, I suppose you can consider the Sipahis to be Arabian knights. If you examine the old manuscripts, you can trace their origins back to the Kontoi horsemen of cursed Bel Aliad, whom we discussed when we spoke of that lost city. Like the Kontoi, they are armed with long lances and bear the finest of Arabian shields and blades. They typically wear the most intricately worked, glittering scale armour and have tall helms, somewhat, although only vaguely perhaps, reminiscent of those of the High Elves, although these are oft wrapped in protective material in the style of the desert nomads. Their steeds, too, are the finest in all the land, for the Arabian horse is in fact descended from elven stock.
What? The elves bred with the horses of Araby? Is there no end to their meddling? Now, that would not surprise me in the slightest. I wouldn't put it past them at all. I had always wondered where centaurs came from.
What? No, not the elves themselves. The horses of Araby are descended from the noble equine beasts of Ulthuan and Sedrik, as well you know. Centaurs do not arise in the way that you're, implying.
Och, you're no fun. But, just to be clear, Heinrich, I think he means that Arabian horses descended from elvish horses. Oh, yeah, I see. Well, that seems a lot cleaner and less dangerous. Those horsey hooves are quite hard, don't you know? Ach, to be true. It's probably not the only hard thing you need to be careful of when you're talking about horses. Anyhow, Septimus, why don't you just get on with your explanation, you old stick in the mud.
Yes. Anyway, as I was saying, the Arabian horse originally came from Ulthuan, although many since have been bred with horses imported from the old world here, their bloodlines diluted or enriched, depending on your point of view, to create hardier, larger, if slower steeds. However, there are certain breeds who have been carefully nurtured and kept pure, although perhaps inbred is a better word, and it is these, both graceful and swift creatures, that the elite Sipahis cavalry ride. Each is a highly prized and wondrous beast, and the rider of each is rightly proud of their mount, lavishing them with the greatest of care and oft adorning them with the best equipment that coin can buy. Anyway, Let us now turn our attention to Mehmed-Bey himself. Mehmed-Bey came to the notice of Jaffar not long after the sorcerer had taken up residence in the city of Lashik. Jaffar spent a great deal of time with the new sultan of the city, whose rise to power Jaffar had facilitated, a man called Harun al-Rashid, in order to ensure that his lackey would remain under his thumb. Jaffar had a great attention for detail and spent a great deal of effort examining the officers and bodyguards employed in the army itself, as well as the palace's retinue, so as to make sure, through careful whispers in the new sultan's ear, that men loyal to Jaffar took key positions in both. If the young sultan of Lashik ever stepped out of line, he could be sure a sharp jambia would soon be thrust into his back from one of those who ostensibly guarded him as he slept, but secretly answered only to the sorcerer. Anyway, it was during a hunting trip with Al-Rashid and some of the Sultan's finest horsemen that one man in particular caught Jaffar's eye. Oh, yeah, I can relate to that. There is something intoxicating about the heady musk of horses and their riders. What? I think we may be talking about slightly different things, Heinrich. Oh, yeah. My apologies, Master Tavern Keeper. I was just remembering someone I used to know. Ha. Anyway, I'll just carry on, eh? For the amusement of his guest, the Sultan commanded his 3 best horsemen ride off and hunt down the most dangerous creature that they could find, and then return before sunset to show off their prize. The youngest returned first with a large desert jackal draped over the back of his horse, both the beast and the warrior bloody.
A fierce beast. You have done well, young warrior,
said Al-Rashid, congratulating the young horseman. Jaffar, though, simply nodded and gave a small clap. The second returned with a lion, a fierce creature that had been preying on a local oasis.
a fine beast, a mighty quarry, and one less thing to worry about for the caravans traveling up to Kofa. You have done well.
Jaffar again nodded, yawned, and gave another polite clap. Just as dusk approached, the third, Mehmed-Bey, returned, apparently empty-handed.
What is this? You found nothing? How can you embarrass me in front of our guest like this? Pickings were slim, O honorable one.
And with that, he flung a cloth sack down at the feet of his rivals. The two men began to laugh, and the youngest reached out and opened it. But the two's grins quickly turned to cries of shock as out leapt two deadly vipers who sunk their fangs into each man. Both cavalrymen immediately descended into a panic, but Mehmed-Bey was as calm as the waters of one of the ornamental ponds that decorate the gardens of Lashik as he looked down at the men and acted. He began by delicately piercing the skull of each snake with the point of his blade, killing them both, before bringing the weapon to bear against his two comrades in arms, ending the suffering of each with a swift beheading. He then carefully grabbed his trophies and laid both men's heads and the bodies of the two serpents at the feet of his sultan. Al-Rashid was speechless, but Jaffar began to laugh and applaud.
My dear Harun, this man is too dangerous to keep around you. Let me take him off your hands. It will be for the best for all involved.
And with that, Mehmed-Bey fell into the service of Jaffar and would become one of his most loyal and trusted servants. We will hear of his exploits throughout the conquest of the rest of Araby and Estalia, as well as during the Crusades, up to the last stand of Jaffar, in fact. But he was first blooded as Jaffar's right-hand man during the invasion of the Sorcerer's Islands.
Och, and so what happened there then?
Ah, well, the story of the invasion of the Sorcerer's Islands began on the streets of Lashik. So, let us start there.